Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly wake-up call session. Every week, as you know, we pose 3 questions to a personality, an intellectual, a journalist, an advocate, a politician who is committed in the fight against the ills that are plaguing our societies. Today, I have the immense pleasure of welcoming someone I've followed and admired for a very long time, Masih Alinejad. Masih has been in exile from Iran for nearly a decade. She's a journalist, a fighter, a women's rights activist, someone who has refused to be silenced. And so I couldn't be more proud and happy to have Masih with us today. Hello, Masih.
Hi, and thank you so much for having me. You named me everything, activist, journalist. You forgot to say that I am a troublemaker.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, I'm a troublemaker for the oppressors in Iran and everywhere.
So let me start out exactly with that. So you have actually created as a troublemaker, an inspirational movement, not only for so many women in Iran, but basically across the world, called My Stealthy Freedom, that was then transformed into an NGO and has really become a major movement. Could you speak to us a little bit about this troublemaking, about the movement, about its significance, and also maybe a little bit, because I know it has cost you personally, a little bit about that?
Before going to what kind of price that I myself paid for just giving voice to Iranian women inside Iran, I'm going to talk about how Iranian women actually paid the price, are in jail right now for removing their hijab. Look, this is my hair. I have a big hair. You have an amazing hair, but I'm coming from a country. If I don't cover this, I get lashes. I get into prison. I won't be able to go to school from the age of 7. I won't be able to get an education. I won't be able to get any kind of ID. I won't exist if I don't cover this hair. So I know that you live in France, and nowadays wearing hijab in France, in Sweden, in America kind of became trendy, and people more pay attention to those who say that we want to wear hijab, let's have my own identity, let's be my true self. So I want to say that how many people right now are in prison just because of wearing hijab in France, in Sweden, in Belgium, in America. Right now that I'm talking to you, 6 women are in prison just because of removing their hijab. So that is why when I left Iran, I thought, okay, this is a time that I can talk about my true self and talk about how I was being humiliated, beaten up, arrested, harassed just because of my compulsory hijab. That's why when I launched My Stealthy Freedom from the beginning, it was just women sending photos to me. Then I shifted this online movement to something offline, which is called White Wednesdays. Women were wearing white symbol or holding a white headscarf in public, practicing the most peaceful civil disobedience action in the streets. So, and for that, the government got, mad, got furious. First, they arrested the activists, forced them to do false confession. Sabah Kordafshari, 20-year-old activist, received 24 years prison sentence, more than her age. Her mother came out, said that now I'm going to be the voice of my daughter. The mother got arrested. Yasaman Aryani, 22-year-old activist from White Wednesdays, received 16 years prison. You think that silenced her or her family? No, the mother joined her and she said, I'm going to be the voice of my daughter. The mother got arrested. Mojgan Keshavarz, Fereshte Didani, Raha Ahmadi, Sara, Matin. These are the women from inside Iran practicing their civil disobedience and got arrested. So I was feeling guilty. I didn't know what to do. So I left it to people inside Iran. Again, I was receiving videos. People want to express themselves. The government found another way to silence the movement. Guess what? They created a new law. The head of the Revolutionary Guard, the head of the Revolutionary Court. We have so many revolutionary court, guards. This time, the head of the Revolutionary Court said that anyone sending videos to Masih Alinejad will be charged up to 10 years prison. Can you believe that? So they were trying to stop women from practicing their civil disobedience. But what happened? Women with hijab, this time sending me video and saying that we are ready to go to prison for 10 years, but we're not going to keep silent. This time they said no to forced hijab, no to Islamic Republic. The government found out that they cannot keep these people silent. What they did, they went after my family. They interrogated my 70-year-old mother. They actually asked her to stop sharing her love with me. My mom wears hijab. She has nothing to do with my campaign, with our campaign, but she's being like interrogated to not just calling me. And they went after my sister. They brought my sister on Iranian national TV to disown me publicly. And then they arrested my brother. My brother received 8 years prison sentence just because of being my brother. So, and I had to make a decision whether, because of my family, keep silent or keep going. So I look at to those brave women in prison. Even from prison, they sent message to outside the world saying that we don't regret. We are not, the victim of this government. We are the warriors, and we're going to keep going. I said to myself, I have a bigger family. The mothers who lost their beloved one, the mothers whose children got killed in Iran protests, sending videos to me. So what should I do? Saying that because of my brother, because of my mom, I'm going to be silent. So that is why actually the movement is there, but it went beyond compulsory hijab. Now, compulsory hijab, as I always say, it's the main pillar of a religious dictatorship. So we are actually fighting against a religious dictatorship. And what bothers me is this, which I have to say that while we are fighting against compulsory hijab, while women are getting beaten up in the streets, like 7-year-olds get kicked out from a school if they don't wear hijab, we see that the female politicians around the world, especially from European Parliament, they go to Iran, they obey compulsory hijab without saying anything. Ségolène Royal from France, she went to Iran, she wore hijab, and she was the one actually condemning burkini ban in France. Let me be clear, this is called hypocrisy. As a female politician, as a feminist in the West, you condemn burkini ban, you condemn Muslim ban, but you obey compulsory hijab in Iran. So it means you only care about your political agenda, you only care about commercial, relation with Iran. You bury your own values, you bury human rights, you bury your own dignity on their political agenda. That's the message of our campaign. Otherwise, women in Iran don't need anyone to save them. They are brave enough. What we want is this. Women of Iran are like Rosa Parks of Iran. They're like women of suffrages. While we are shaking this dictatorship, we do not want any female politicians go to Iran, or any kind of politician legitimize the same regime. I'm going to just end up this question with one example. I myself interviewed so many clerics in Iran, challenging them about compulsory hijab laws. One of the clerics in Iran told me in an interview that, look, Catherine Ashton, the High Representative of European Parliament, she respects our law and she wears the hijab. Who are you? How dare you to encouraging all the women to misrespect our laws? So you see, when you keep silent and legitimizing the discriminatory laws, you're actually allowing the dictatorship to put more pressure on us. So female politicians from your country, they say that this is a law, we have to respect the law. You kidding me? First of all, slavery used to be legal. Second of all, imagine you force the Iranian female politicians in France to take off their hijab. What would they say? My government, when they come to France, to your country, they ask you to remove all the alcohol beverages from any kind of official dinner. So this is the time that Western governments should stand for their own dignity and for universal values. This is the message of our campaign to the West, to the rest of the world.
Wow. Quite something, I have to say, and also the price again that you are yourself and all of those women are willing to pay for a greater good. Let me ask you now a second question. There have recently been so-called elections in Iran.
Oh, yeah, so-called election. We call it selection.
So could you speak to us a little bit about those selections,
Yes.
about Ibrahim Raissi's election and what it means for Iran and what it means for the Iranian people?
That's so simple. I'm going to ask a question. If as a woman, you are not allowed to choose what you want to wear, if you're not allowed to ride a bicycle, if you're not allowed to get a passport without getting permission from your husband, if you're not allowed to travel abroad without getting permission from your husband, if you're not allowed to be a judge, if you're not allowed to be a president, if you're not allowed to enter a stadium, if you're not allowed to sing, then your government says that, okay, but you're allowed to vote. How would you call this election? This is the situation of Iranian women. All our rights being away from us, only one right. We've been given the right of voting. So that is why for women, this has been a selection for years and years, not election. But for millions of people in Iran, this time was very obvious that they actually set Ibrahim Raisi to be the president before this election, because they want him to be the supreme leader, next supreme leader of Iran. But what I'm trying to say is this: all the candidates are being handpicked by the Guardian Council in Iran, which the supreme leader is on the top. So for us, that was not a free election. But most important than this time, we don't even call Ibrahim Raisi like the president of Iran. We call him Ayatollah Qatl Am, which means Ayatollah massacre. Why? Because he was actually involved. He was the one ordering the executions of more than 5,000 political prisoners. And when Iran protests happened in Iran, 1,500 people got killed. I myself interview every day to the family, talk to the families of those people who got killed. They are inside Iran. They risk their lives. And they talk to me and journalists saying that we don't call him president because he's the killer of our children. 1,500 protesters got killed, according to Reuters. So Navid Afghari, Iranian wrestler, got arrested when he was the head of judiciary system. Ruhollah Zam, a journalist from your country, which breaks my heart when I talk about him. They actually tracked him from France, from your country, to Iraq, and they kidnapped him from Iraq and they executed him in Iran. Basically, he was a journalist. Simply, he was doing his job. He got executed when Ibrahim Raisi was the head of the judiciary system in Iran. So that is why Iranian people calling on the Western government, international communities to do an investigation on Iranian president. And we recently have heard that the European Parliament are going to sanction the officials of the Islamic Republic. I call on the European members, the members of European Parliament, if you're really serious, the first step should be Ibrahim Raisi in your sanctions list, because he is the main massacre. He's the main killer. Otherwise, people would think that the Western government do not care about human rights when it comes to nuclear deal. So that's just so simple. Do not allow a murderer enter to the European countries until you arrest him or you send him to the court. And this is not me saying that. Many human rights activists can testify that Ibrahim Raisi was involved of murdering thousands of innocent people. That's how we see the selection in Iran. And we are going actually to name and shame any Western countries who send a congratulatory message to this killer or shaking hand with him. This is the time that the history will judge all the Western countries, how they are going to deal with Ibrahim Raisi.
Well, the last question you more or less answered already, but it's a question that we're asking all of our invitees. And so if you were to meet with, I don't know, let's say President Biden or President Macron, and they asked you, how would you recommend right now we deal with Iran? What would you tell them?
Oh my God. I'm going to tell President Macron, President Biden, imagine your own son, your own daughter being hostage in the hands of Ibrahim Raisi and Iranian officials. What would you do? You just go and talk about nuclear deal? Or you ask him immediately release your son and your daughter? That's a simple question that many mothers in Iran whose children were executed, tortured to death, got shot in the head, in the chest, in the streets for the crime of protesting would ask President Macron and President Biden. They want to know that what would be the reaction of them if their own beloved one being in prison under torture. You know why? My heart was broken when I saw after Behnam Mahjoubi got killed because of torture in prison. I saw a statement by the US government saying that that was a bad behavior. I was like, wait a minute. You call this bad behavior? That has a significant name. It is called murdering, torture. And we don't need someone downplaying the level of oppression in Iran. So, and I heard so many times that President Macron was trying actually to help President Rouhani to have a phone call and negotiation with President, President of the United States of America. My question is this: the regime, which never want to have a negotiation with its own people, the only way that they negotiate with their own people is killing them, torturing them, or sending them to exile. You really want to negotiate with them without recognizing the civil society? I want President Macron. If you're really looking for stability in the region, you cannot go after one of the most unstable regimes and negotiate with them without negotiating with the civil society, with those people who are fighting against this dictatorship. And most important than this, when ISIS was killing people, all the European countries, they took action. I want to say that ISIS is still in power in the Islamic Republic of Iran. You may say that this is too radical, do not exaggerate. Let me give you an example. ISIS behead people. This is what the Islamic Republic has been doing for 40 years, hanging people. ISIS used to take hostage, dual national citizen hostage, the Western journalists, the Western activists. Right now that I'm talking to you, French citizens, Swedish citizens, German citizens, British citizens, US citizens are hostage in the hands of the Islamic Republic and the government of Iran using them as a bargaining chip. They are doing exactly what the ISIS has been doing. ISIS count women second-class citizens. I am a second-class citizen in my country. ISIS lashes people. The Islamic Republic lashes us if we remove our hijab. The Islamic Republic lashes me if I drink a glass of wine. If in Ramadan, I just drink water. I mean, honestly, what is the difference between ISIS and the Islamic Republic? I'm going to tell you, the difference is this. ISIS has, the Islamic Republic has Javad Zarif, the smiley foreign minister. They have a selection and they can be invited to the United Nations and legitimizing one of the most oppressive regimes by being welcomed from the Western leaders. That's the point. And honestly, this is not me saying that just because my brother is in prison. The whole nation is being like a hostage in Iran. We don't have a normal life. You know, And people say that this is your culture. You know, this is not my culture. Before the revolution, we were allowed to go to stadium. We were allowed to dance. We were allowed to have a mixed party. We were allowed to be happy. But right now, the government come into your private place and get you arrested and lashes you if you have a mixed party. That happens every day in Iran. So that is why my question to the leaders of the Western countries, especially President Macron and President Biden, would be the same. If you yourself and your family are suffering from ISIS, would you just shake the hand of the ISIS? Or first you ask immediately that you have to respect human rights values. You have to release all the innocent political prisoners. If your answer is yes, I'm going to stand with human rights and my own dignity, then you have to stand with the people of Iran as well, rather than shaking hands with the dictators and the oppressors. That's it.
Thank you very much, Masih. I couldn't be more happy that to have had you today. Your voice, your presence is an inspiration to women of Iran, but far beyond women of Iran. I think to everyone who cherishes.
Yeah, honestly, this is not a fight for women of Iran. We are fighting against the extremists. And we are sure if the Western feminists, if the Western leaders do not join us, then the Islamic Republic is like a coronavirus. It can infect the rest of the world. We care about human rights, and doesn't matter where it happened, you know. And my dream is to come to France and visit the French feminists. And I want to really thank all of them, especially those two journalists who challenged the president of Iran by holding a picture of our campaign and saying that, how do you feel, President Rouhani? Do you feel humiliated by these brave women? Iranian women are brave. I want to thank French feminists and activists who are supporting our cause and our fight against dictatorship.
Thank you very much, Masih.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Yes, au revoir.
Au revoir.